Hello, my name is Rebecca Thrash, and this is my Culminating Project about teacher leadership. Firstly, what is the definition of teacher leadership? On page 6 in Awakening the Sleeping Giant, Katzenmeier and Mahler define teacher leadership as occurring when teacher leaders lead within and beyond the classroom, identify with and contribute to a community of teacher learners and leaders, influence others towards improved educational practice, and accept responsibility for achieving the outcomes of their leadership. Within this overall definition, I believe there are specific behaviors that teacher leaders have that are foundational to this idea. Teacher leaders are above all effective communicators, using these skills to enhance their practice and forge relationships among people. They concentrate on removing barriers to their students' success and even perhaps to the success of their colleagues in schools. Because teacher leaders are master communicators, they are also master conflict resolvers. They strive to bring people and visions together and to work toward a common goal. Lastly, teacher leaders are always willing to share their ideas and reasons for successes with others. As Fallon states in The New Meaning of Educational Change, they strive for a deprivatization of practice. They value the skills and talents of their colleagues, therefore their outlook of teaching is based in collaboration. In addition to those foundational behaviors, teacher leaders also have some definitive characteristics. Wilmore describes teachers leaders as creative, flexible, lifelong learners who value humor and are efficacious in their practice. They take risks when trying new ideas, have the interpersonal skills to build relationships with stakeholders, and are constantly reflective of their practice and performance. Furthermore, educational leaders in general, according to Fallon, have the ability to see the world as a network of support so they know where to turn for help. He also states that a growth mindset is present, so teacher leaders see setbacks as opportunities for personal development. Because teacher leaders have a growth mindset, they understand the value of ongoing professional development. As the quote reads, "Who dares to teach must never cease to learn." Fallon discusses how teacher education programs are not enough to adequately prepare new teachers for the various demands of the classroom, and collaboration isn't necessarily a part of teacher education either. On page 239 of The New Meaning of Educational Change, he states that social, intellectual, and professional isolation of teachers begins in teacher education. Professional development opportunities helps to fill these gaps. As stated previously, having a growth mindset naturally lends itself to seek out professional development. Wilmore describes this on page 95 of Teacher Leadership, when he says that this mindset requires teacher leaders to frequently and systematically assess the needs for their personal growth, develop a practical timeline for improvement, and be mindful of a valid way to measure their growth. As I mentioned in my professional development plan, effective and successful professional development occurs when it has sustained duration and incorporates time for teachers to reflect and make changes to their practices. Not only does this help to meet the needs of personal growth, but it helps to prevent classroom instruction from becoming static. Teacher leaders know that the real-world demands of students are ever-changing, which requires the classroom to be ever-changing as well. As an aspiring teacher leader, I have some professional development goals that I think will enhance my ability to lead my students and colleagues to better educational outcomes. In general, as Wilmore states on page 93, I want to always incrementally adjust what I do in my classroom to fit the needs of my students, not just change everything in favor of an entirely different approach. I want to be a curator of ideas that are successful. I also believe that my personal professional development can be mostly enhanced by gaining more experiences in how to work through the process of change. As described by Fallon on page 83, the commitment to what should be changed often varies inversely with knowledge about how to work through the process of change. I take this to mean that I can't truly know or appreciate a new idea or initiative until I understand how the process of implementing it will work. As stated in my professional development plan written earlier this semester, I do have some very specific PD goals. I would like to increase my knowledge about the special needs of students in STEM schools and interaction with other specialty STEM teachers, become a school leader in content knowledge and enhance the school's AP program, and become more knowledgeable about social emotional learning and how to help students acquire these skills. Change is an ever-present reality of educational institutions. As shown in this graphic, there are multiple stages of change where teachers can play a role. Wilmore emphasizes on page 10 how vision is necessary for teacher leaders to accomplish their goal. Vision is also necessary for educational change. Teacher leaders can help to interpret the larger vision of educational change to their colleagues and students. The role of the teacher in implementation of change is to always strive for high learning expectations in the classroom. This requires commitment to a plan and the perseverance to see it through. Lastly, if any educational change is to be realized, all stakeholders must be involved and dedicated to the change. As Wilmore states on page 69, teachers are the conduit to parents and students, groups who, without them, change is doomed to fail. The prospects for teacher leadership is best summarized by a quote from Margulis and Hynes. Who is best positioned to improve teacher quality in schools when many teachers believe things are working fine and reforms are simply the flavor of the month? Who and what will make a veteran teacher try something new, really try something new? We argue that the answer to these questions rest in teachers themselves. That is, teachers improve teachers, themselves and one another, by engaging in teacher-led reform driven by teacher leaders. The first prospect for teacher leadership is in developing other teachers. As Fluon states on page 214, you can't change the instructional practice of a large number of practitioners over whom you have little control and no proximity. Teacher leaders can serve as the channel for top-down change. I believe in doing this, teacher leaders can be at the heart of sustained change in their schools by also helping to serve others as leaders, which extends to both colleagues and students. Because teacher leaders are fulfilling roles of support in their schools, they can also combat the high rate of teacher turnover, which is largely driven by new teachers feeling overwhelmed and unsupported in their classrooms. Another prospect for teacher leadership is curriculum assessment and quality. Wilmore states on page 57 that teacher leaders must work together to ensure that the curriculum being taught is what is being assessed, and vice versa. Lastly, I think teacher leaders remain one of the best bets for advancing the status of teaching as a profession. On page 150 of Awakening the Sleeping Giant, Katzenmeier and Mahler references a multi-level career path for a Millennium School, where professional teachers engage in teacher research and curriculum development, and teachers in the role of chief instructor can publish within the academic community. This by far would help to elevate teaching as a profession. When reflecting on teacher leadership within my own career, I've seen many times when teachers and teacher leaders have had wonderful ideas, but because of a lack of planning and no real deadlines for completion, they never materialize. I think this is something that I can really strive to incorporate in my own goals as a teacher leader. Furthermore, Fluon in the New Meaning of Educational Change often associates the success of change implementation with teacher collegiality. This collegiality involves frequency of communication, mutual support, help, and so forth. I've had many experiences that align with this, including collaboration with 2 other teachers and spearheading a new course that was very successful because of the quality of my relationships with these teachers. And I've also had unsuccessful experiences because of working with a colleague where there was no collegiality. That particular experience has kept me from being involved in collaboration with that particular teacher. I think moving forward, I will always put forming positive relationships with my peers first so our mutual goals can be achieved. Lastly, as I stated in my Module 2 discussion post, I have always felt that the teaching profession often values, whether intentionally or not, personal overextension. Teacher leaders should serve as models for how to avoid this and have more work-life balance. Teaching is an emotionally and cognitively demanding profession. We must take care of ourselves first if we are to be any use to our students. A teaching career is a marathon, not a sprint. During this course, some of my views on teacher leadership have definitely changed. I used to view teacher leadership as a stepping stone to a formal position of leadership within schools. This is still possible, but I've come to realize that teacher leadership is much more informal, and the application of teacher leadership is everywhere in education. And it begins by showing your willingness to learn and serve others. I also now see teacher leadership as more of a position of influence than of direct enforcement. Wilmore states on page 69 that what the teacher values, the student values. I think what the teacher leader values, the school community will value as well. This is also achieved by committing to seeing things from others' points of view. Teacher leaders strive to connect to another's reality. Another change in my views is that teacher leadership is mostly about knowing enough about your school and the people you work with to help all those assets come together to achieve a vision. As Fallon states on page 157, in a postmodern society, you no longer get the job of education done unless you combine forces. Teacher leaders play a major role in helping this happen because they are not just master teachers, they are master community makers. As stated by Katzenmeier and Mahler on page 59, teachers developing as leaders collaborate with their peers to understand first themselves, then their colleagues, and finally their schools. Some of the other additional learning points in this course has been based on the psychological reality of teaching and how much of our mindset plays a role in our daily work lives. While reading The New Meaning of Educational Change, a part of Chapter 6 really stood out to me. Fallon says, one of the predominant feelings that characterize the psychological state of teachers in teaching is uncertainty. Teachers aren't sure if they have made any difference at all. I believe that we often underestimate the effect of these feelings on our ability to work effectively in education. I think that teacher leaders can make a big impact here for the teams they work in by supporting fellow teachers and providing good feedback to them about their performance. Forging positive relationships with others can help to develop more trust amongst all the teachers in a learning community. This trust and sense of certainty is vital to school improvement. As I try to become a teacher leader, a few questions that I have mostly deal with the role of administration in advancing and valuing teacher leadership and the overall structure of the teaching profession in general. For instance, if teacher leadership is to be valued, administrators have to believe they are a worthwhile investment. How can teacher leaders demonstrate the value of their work to administrators when a lot of what they do is behind the scenes and focused on capacity building? How can schools encourage more teachers to pursue teacher leadership when there still exists a good deal of uncertainty in how those roles should be compensated or if they should be made more formal? As Katzenmeier and Mahler state on page 71, there are generational differences in values, beliefs, and ideas about the work and the workplace. I think younger teachers want to have more diversity in their roles and could be attracted to teacher leadership, but without a clear professional benefit attached, they may be more discouraged. Thank you. This has been my culminating project on teacher leadership.